now that we got introductions of this channel out of the way, let's get down to the bulk and what we're going to be talking about. And today it's U.S. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. So before we get started, I just want you to ask yourself, he's originally from Louisiana, and he's been elected from there several times. If you're a Louisianian watching from here, do you identify with a lot of Mike Johnson's beliefs? Also, granted that he's Speaker of the House, as an American, do you identify with a lot of his beliefs, his thoughts? Do you have faith and trust that he is going to represent you in your beliefs, in your thoughts to the best of his ability? Let's go ahead and get started. So prior to entering politics, Mike Johnson made it his mission to become a constitutional lawyer. Constitutional freedoms would go talk to a constitutional lawyer. And ways that your constitutional freedoms may be exploited, right? Is you not being able to vote, you not being able to wear a shirt that says, I love the Macarena, right? Like, you can do whatever you want. You're an American, and these principles are constitutionally yours. So essentially, he became a constitutional lawyer to uphold American citizens' rights. So that was specifically his lane. What he did on this in 2010, Johnson was one of the people who tried to open a Pressler School of Law in Louisiana. He was named the founding dean. The university never opened due to funds being misappropriated. Let me know in the comments below. Is this something that you can relate to? Have you ever tried to open a university? Have you ever been in any type of scandal where funds were misappropriated? Let me know. I've never been in a situation like this. Johnson just has a long history, a huge career of defending religious freedoms and really defining what he thinks the Bible means and how people should practice. It seems like he's made that his life's mission. One example of this is when Johnson told the Louisiana Baptist magazine newspaper in 2016, direct quote, I'm a Christian, a husband, a father, a lifelong conservative, a constitutional law attorney, and a small business owner in that order. So Johnson, that's his principles. That's what he subscribes to. So that's his beliefs, right? The sanctuary of human life and biblical values, including the defense of traditional marriage and other ideals like these when they're being under assault. Cool. I'm glad that he has his principles. These views, from my perspective, leave little room for people who have different theological beliefs, right? What if you're Muslim or Jewish or even Catholic or even a branch of Christianity that doesn't subscribe to, this hateful rhetoric? Maybe they feel that love thy brother, love thy neighbor. So there's different ways to practice, but it seems like Mike Johnson is very specific on how Christianity looks and how people should worship, and that has become his founding message. How Johnson was able to break into the political arena was in 2015. He ran for an unopposed seat, so essentially nobody ran against him, and he automatically got the position. If Mike Johnson can become a House of Representative, so can you. Literally, nobody ran against him. You deserve to be a House of Representative. You deserve to be representative. You deserve to have people in our government that looks like you and has your values. And look, you can even run and maybe somebody won't run again. So essentially, in 2015, Johnson proposed the Marriage and Conciseness Act. One of the main components of this act was he really wanted to make sure that businesses had the opportunity to discriminate against American citizens based on their sexual orientation, right? So they had the right to say, no, I'm not going to make your cake or be your photographer because you're gay. He made this marriage Science Act. And essentially, the goal was to make sure business owners could be hateful as they wanted to be able to discriminate against people, specifically of the LGBT community, and say, hey, we can't make your cake, or you're gay, so we don't want to provide you services. Councilman Dialga at the time described Johnson as a despicable bigot of the highest order. To that, Johnson rebuffed by just saying that It was wildly inaccurate statement. So switching gears to Johnson's personal life, he met his wife Kelly while he was still attending law school. Kelly was at Louisiana Tech University earning her undergrad in early education, where she did eventually go on to become a teacher in both public and private settings. Kelly and Mike decided to have a covenant marriage, which essentially is a more strenuous process to marriage and divorce. It makes it extra layers. There's only 3 states that offer a covenant marriage, Louisiana, of course, being one of them. And according to the most recent stat I found, only 2% of Louisiana residents who are married are also in a covenant marriage, which isn't too shocking. We can see that Mike Johnson is very radical in his beliefs. He is definitely an outlier. He's an extremist on how he chooses to practice in his faith, right? Comments that just highlighted their beliefs and what they offered at the counseling services. Here's a direct quote. We believe the Bible teaches that any form of sexual immorality, such as adultery, fornication, homosexuality, bisexual conduct, bestiality, incest, pornography, or any attempt to change one's sex or disagreement with one's biological sex is sinful and offensive to God. In the video, one of the things that I feel makes America great is our differences, right? And we all have different beliefs and things that are important to us. Like I said, maybe mental health, maybe abortion rights, LGBT, marijuana, who knows, like what the number one thing you're going to the ballot box is. So let's just go on to some of Mike Johnson's main beliefs. So it's extremely against abortions. In 2015, he actually said that abortions were the cause of school shootings. In 2024, Johnson did claim that he was against proposing a national abortion ban. However, a lot of the bills he's proposed in 2021, 2023 do. Moving on to climate change, in 2017, Johnson actually had kind of a progressive view, right? He said that the Earth's climate is changing. However, he went against science and said that the scientific consensus of climate change may not be caused by humans. Let me know below, what do you think? I don't know where Johnson got his geographical environmental degree. It sounds like he was a lawyer who was really into fundamental Christianity, but yeah, he's just switching into that lane of environmentalism. It should be noted that in October 2023, Johnson received over $300,000 in donations from oil and gas industries while in Congress. Surprisingly, Johnson, who, after dipping his toes in the scientific community, he also rejects the notion of evolution. He, direct quote, says, people say, how can a young person go into a schoolhouse and open fire on their classmates? Because we're taught a whole generation, a couple generations now, of Americans that there's no right or no wrong, that it's about survival of the fittest, and that you evolve from a primordial slime. What is that life of any sacred value? Because nobody is scared to whom it's owned. So essentially, he's saying that evolution is slime. I mean, I can't get into his lack of science knowledge. Also, again, like this man loves to attribute all school shootings to different things. So abortions are the result of school shootings, and he also claims evolution is the result of school shootings. So, okay, so that's how he's operating. Political affairs. In 2024, Johnson deemed that China was the biggest global threat to our peace. He also has condemned the Ukraine, but also signed bills to send them $21 billion in care packaging. He is anti-protesting for Palestine. So he said that the Congress will not be silent as Jewish students experience a run for their lives and stay home from classes hiding in fear. That's a really nice quote. I just don't know if any of his past actions or beliefs are congruent with what he's saying, right? Because it doesn't seem like he values education. Rising, Johnson, his view on healthcare. He's against expanding Medicaid. He also, helps repeal the Affordable Care Act. So let me know in the comments below, is that representative of how you feel our healthcare system should? One of the biggest criticisms of Johnson is his beliefs on LGBT rights. He said several times that homosexuality does not meet the criteria for a suspect under equal protections. He's really passionate about getting rid of LGBT protections and laws because he doesn't think their relationships are valid. Again, he also says that states should have the grounds to get rid of same-sex deviant sexual intercourse. Again, this man seems like he is obsessed with telling people what to do in their bedrooms. I don't know how, as an American citizen, he feels that he has so much control of what people are doing. It's utterly wild to me. Continuing his crusade against the LGBT community in 2024, Johnson announced a new policy on bathrooms in the U.S. Capitol, saying a single-sex facility on the Capitol of the House building, such as restrooms, changing rooms, and locker rooms, are reserved for individuals of that biological sex. Because an openly trans person was elected, as we know, every single person in Congress has their own bathrooms throughout. Again, this is November 2024. He's talking about this. The transgender community is less than 1% of American citizens. So just focus our time on making policies that would improve Americans' lives instead of trying to disenfranchise a 1% of the population, right? Which, being 1% of the population, you're probably already feeling pretty marginalized and disadvantaged. But it makes no sense that we spend so much time just trying to ensure the prosecution of trans. I read. So a lot of the drugs are classified on like a ranking scale, like how you would do in school, like A through F. He gives marijuana an F rating. He's voted against it numerous times. He's opposed the medical marijuana bills in Louisiana. And one of the specific reasons why he has argued against it is quoting the American Epilepsy Society, saying that essentially you can have severe reactions to your epilepsy if you're on marijuana. I don't know if that's true or not, but my personal thought is okay, so that again seems like it affects a very small margin of people. So you're citing one study to make your point. What about, people who do benefit from marijuana, like doing cancer treatments or mental health treatments and things like that? I don't know why you would focus on one study to make your point unless you're just trying to end the conversation, which I don't know, maybe. So since 2023, Johnson has voted twice against the legalization and even the decriminalization of marijuana. So essentially that just means like it's not a jailable offense, right? If you're carrying like less than an ounce, it's a ticket, like a driving ticket or something like that. Like you don't need to go to jail. It's not a violent crime. Johnson's against that. He wants your booty in jail. So what we know about Johnson is he said that his religious beliefs inform everything he does, including the way he governs and utilizes policies, right? Fine, that's cool. I'm glad you have your convictions. My question is the way that he practices his faith congruent with you and how you want to be represented? Especially if you live in Louisiana, right? Let alone America. Because Mike Johnson not only is a Christian, he is very specific on how you should practice and what type of faith you should have, and also like what you should be doing in your bedroom and who you should love. So in 2015, Johnson went to hash his grievances out on Facebook. And he wrote, Donald Trump lacks the character and moral center we desperately need again in the White House. I'm afraid he would break more things than he fixes. He's a hothead by nature, and dangerous trait to have as the commander in chief. I just don't think he has the demeanor to be president. So follow that up by 2020. Johnson was one of the 120 House of Representatives who supported and voted to not certify the election, saying there was fraud. He made numerous accusations against the ballots, the merit, even though there's been lawsuits, it's been proven there was no fraud. He continued down this path in making these beliefs and trying to get bills passed in order to not certify the election. But later in 2022, he said he never supported claims of mass fraud elections in 2020. So I don't know, man. Like, he loved Trump, he hates Trump, he thinks election was real. He never said that. You know, popular Mike Johnson was one of 7 of the House of Representatives to vote against the commission to set up to investigate the events of January 6th. There's like 600 people in the House of Representatives, and this man is one of 7 saying we don't need to investigate people storming the Capitol. Like, regardless of your views, that needs to be investigated, right? But no, Johnson is one of 7 who doesn't believe that. After saying that Trump wasn't a good fit for presidency, he changed his tune. I wonder, if he had any corporate help with that, or he just came to those conclusions on himself. So my biggest takeaway of Johnson is a couple things, right? Johnson is a hard fighter for what he believes in. His beliefs appear to be. So as I conclude my deep dive of Mike Johnson, a couple things are apparently clear. He's a staunch fighter of what he believes is right. Johnson is a very much a black and white thinker. He believes that his way of life is right, and there's no like ambiguity or way in between. He's a fundamental Christian, and he expects all Americans to follow in suit. He will fight endlessly for policies that are in line with what he believes. Which personally, I want a House of Representatives or anybody in the government to fight hard for what they believe and fight hard for what I believe in. So I ask, with all this information, is Mike Johnson somebody who represents you, especially if you're from the state of Louisiana? As the Speaker of the House and fellow American, are you glad that your tax dollars are going to fund Mike Johnson? Is his beliefs how you want to? Is his beliefs congruent with how you want America to be and how you choose to live your life? Do you believe there should be religious freedoms and freedoms in your sexuality? What specific policies do you think Mike Johnson has that you really endorse and can go along with? Let me know in the comments, and I hope you have a beautiful day. And regardless, you deserve better. And you deserve somebody who's going to fight for the things that you believe in and that you love and that matter to you and your family.